Hi, this is Johannes with Glassbox, and in this video I want to give you an overview of Dragonfly's recording workflow. Understanding this isn't a requirement for starting to record with Dragonfly, but this will be useful to understand how Dragonfly helps you take an animated scene all the way through the VCam recording process to an exported sequence. Firstly, let's really quickly talk about how to prep your animation. Dragonfly can record without any animation present, but if you are using animation, then we recommend that you put it into an overall master sequence. So that's an animation sequence that contains all your keyframe animation. Let's look at mine, for example, here. This is a level sequence, and it has all my keyframe animation that happens in this scene. So that's these robots flying through this environment, creating a tea ceremony, right? And having this in one level sequence here means that we can go into Dragonfly settings in the recording section specifically, and under master sequence, tell Dragonfly what our sequence is. For me, that's robotic tea ceremony. And by selecting it here, when we switch to the Dragonfly viewport, you will also see that we can navigate this animation sequence from Dragonfly's viewport directly. And when we create a shot here, you can see that the sequence also plays back automatically because it is selected in Dragonfly. Again, you don't need to have a master sequence selected for Dragonfly to be able to record, but if you are working with animation, this will help you throughout the whole workflow. Cool. So let's say I am lining up a shot here. You just saw me move in position with joysticks. If you are wondering how to generally move your camera, we have a separate getting started video on that. But let's assume we already are very familiar with moving the camera and we just want to record some shots. So this may be a starting frame. I don't have to do anything like placing cameras in the scene, creating sequences, none of that. Dragonfly will take care of all those things for me. All that I have to do once my camera is in position is hit record, either in my viewport here or at the bottom of the operator main or on the iPad. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hit record. You can see my animation sequence moving. I am recording this shot and I'm hitting stop again. So this shot that I just recorded is stored within Dragonfly. You can see if we go into the content folder, we haven't created any level sequences or anything like that here. But if we switch the operator main panel to review, you can see that the two shots that I just took are showing up in our shot list here. The first one is the first shot that I took just as an example while I was talking about this. So this isn't actually something that I want to use. So what I will typically immediately do is use this rating function to make a note for later that this is not a usable shot. But the second one is the one that we were actually talking about as an example. Let's assume we're super happy with this shot, right? So I can also go ahead and give this shot a better rating. And so as you're generating more shots, rating them really helps. You can also rename your shots here. Speaking of the shot name, the reason that a shot has a certain name comes from the fact that in operator main, we have a shot name preset here. So if you are working from a shot list, for example, or you already know what kind of shot you will be creating, you can also name your shots in advance. And then that obviously also helps differentiating them in your shot list in your view. So as you just saw, we can play the shot back here. Right, that's also playing back the animation courtesy of our connected master sequence. By default, this shot has quite a bit of camera shake. Let's take a look at that. So this is what I actually originally recorded. You can see this shaking a little bit, and that's just because I was doing this with an iPad, which is a pretty light device. However, you can smooth this shot after the fact by going to this smoothing section and applying a little bit of smoothing here, depending on how natural or how stable you want this shot. That's totally personal preference. Let's look at this particular setting. Yeah, and maybe that's what I'm happy with. This smoothing is completely non-destructive. So if I'm taking this off again, as I did slightly earlier, you can see me going back to my original shot, right? But in this case, I would probably apply a little bit of smoothing here just to take the edge off that slight shake off here. Cool. You can also play around with these settings if you want. For example, if you look at this shot and you feel after the fact that you should have used, let's say, a narrower lens, you can change this after the fact. You can take a look at your shot with those changed camera parameters and then hit save if you like this better. At some point, you'll probably want to take this shot out of Dragonfly. And to do that, we can select one shot, or we can also hold Shift or Control and select multiple shots for batch export. In any case, we will go down to the export section here and select the file format. If you are working with different environments other than just Unreal Engine, you may want to export this as an FBX immediately, or you may want to export an image sequence. In my case, I'll be staying in Unreal Engine here, so I'll just keep this selected as a level sequence. You'll also want to select a save path. So I will click this and then select the folder where I want my exported shots to go. In my case, this is just a folder that lives inside the content folder here that I've created called exports, which is empty right now, but we will change that by clicking export here. That exports our shot or shots if we have multiple selected. And let's look at the folder again. So here's our exported level sequence, and we can open it, display it, right, play it back. So at this point, this is just a normal Unreal Engine level sequence, like any other level sequence that you may be familiar with. We can also see the keyframes here. You can see this is a fairly smooth curve. That's because I applied that little bit of smoothing. So at this point, our smoothing is baked down at the correct frame rate. But yeah, we can do anything with this that we can do with a normal Unreal Engine level sequence, including rendering this shot in Movie Render Queue. Note that we also have our master sequence embedded here as a subsequence. So that simply helps keeping our animation aligned with the camera animation here. And what that does is it also allows us to do a quick edit within Unreal Engine. So let's say I have multiple sequences exported, right? Let's also select export this first shot as an example here. What I could do is I could create a new level sequence here. And let's call it edit. And I can bring in these takes, align them on my timeline here to create a quick edit, right? And so I can go in and trim these. So that's my first shot. Then here's my second shot, right? And as we play this back, you'll see how it correctly switches between the cameras there and how the animation keeps aligned. Keep in mind that when you're looking at level sequences like this, your master sequence gets unloaded in Dragonfly's operator main. So either go in and select your master sequence again before your next shot, or you can also go into review and select any previous shot that had the correct master sequence, and that'll also reselect it in operator main. Cool. Of course, the main part is to create more shots now, but hopefully that gives you a good overview of Dragonfly's recording workflow from start to export.